Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. So we wanted to get on here today and just talk to you guys a little bit about what it's like being a family member of somebody in addiction.
Yes.
It's not all about just being in addiction, but there's other people that are involved in it too. Other people that suffer with it too. And like Sheena was saying earlier, we get that side of it too.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Everybody. It's not just the addict that goes out and hurts themselves. The whole family is involved. The whole family's out there with you. They're all dealing with their own pains, their own sufferings, their own worries, their own healthy mental situations. Because I can't imagine what it was like for my mother, since I didn't have a child in addiction, but my father was in addiction, and I know what that was like from the child's point of view. But I can't imagine if my daughter was out there and I didn't know where she was and she hadn't called me in days, and I didn't know if that next call was going to be her. I do remember being to a point where every time I was at school or something and I heard an ambulance go by in a certain direction, I was like, oh my gosh, is it my dad?
Yeah.
I know that part of it, but like we all get injured in it, and there's a healing process for everybody.
Yeah, because those hurts and those things, they don't just go away even after you get sober. It's not like, well, I got sober, everything's good now. But those hurts that you've caused with your family, they don't just go away. You have to work through those things. You have to build trust again, and those things take time. And even with your loved one in addiction, like, it's okay to say you went through a program and you got clean, but I still don't trust you. Like, we have to work through those things, and you can't just pretend that they don't exist.
Yes. And you have to give your family members each their own amount of time. You can't, it's not a one size fits all, just like programs aren't, it's okay, I really did a lot of damage to my mom and my sister, and my mom might forgive me and be overjoyed in 6 months, but it might take my sister 2 years to work through her problems and be able to step forward and us rebuild that relationship. But you have to give them room, because you have to own your things, and you hurt them, and you did these things, and you gave them reasons not to trust you, and work through that.
Yeah, I didn't really understand it until coming out of addiction, how much I destructed my own family.
Yes.
I realized that I was destructing my family, but myself, but I didn't realize how much it affected them. So getting sober and then taking years to be able to apologize and to talk these things out with my family, it took a lot of healing on my part, but also with them, like not even understanding until after my destruction and after going through rehab that I realized that I hurt them so much as well, you know? And like you said, it's such a healing process for us all, And even now, having loved ones in addiction, that's still hard, seeing the other side of it. Like, I want you to get help. You're destructing your life, but,
You can't make them.
Right.
You can't make them
Like
as
they
much as
couldn't
we
make
would
me.
love to. Yes.
Yeah.
And once you've been an addict too, and then you have a family member, you just want to shake them.
Yes.
You feel like this is where you're heading, but
Yes.
you can't force anybody to see
Right.
what's on the other side of those railroad tracks, because
Well, and even when you're in it, you see people that are on the other side of the railroad tracks, but you think, I could never get there.
exactly. I
Yeah.
thought that
I
about
could
my
never get
father.
there.
I was like, I'll
Yes.
never be like my dad.
Yes.
I'll never be like him.
Yeah.
But nobody's subject to not be that.
Right.
Drugs, they don't choose, the best this and the worst that. It's
Right.
whatever they grab a hold of is what they grab a hold of. So.
Yes. And just, I think that there's a lot of people out there who have a loved one in addiction that don't have any idea. For us, we've been through addiction. We've been through the programs. We've been through the things, and we get it. But I can't imagine how hard it would be to have someone that you love in addiction and you've never been there, and you don't get it, and you don't understand it. We understand the different programs and the different detoxes. We understand what it's like to feel useless and worthless. We understand what it's like to say, I'm not hurting anybody other than myself.
Yeah.
And we understand now that we have people that we care about who are in addiction. We can look at it through a different set of eyes. And seeing people come in and out of programs and knowing that it's hard and all that stuff. but to be there and have no idea, you know, I don't know why you don't just get clean.
Oh yeah.
I don't understand why you don't just stop using, you
Or
know?
the terrible feeling of being a parent or something, and you get a phone call from your child and they're begging you for money. And
Yes.
even when you start to understand that they're going to use it for something bad, you feel terrible not giving it to them. Or
Right.
when they're guilt tripping you because their car's broken down and you don't know if it's true or not, but you just want to help them because they're your
Right.
child.
Right.
You know, there's so many aspects of manipulation that we use in addiction, and man, those drugs just tell you that's what you have to do. You've got to get what you've got to get.
Yes.
And your family is the one that's getting manipulated, and it changes the way people think and the way they feel and the hurt.
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine, because I think with parents with children in addiction, it comes on some kind of shame of what did I do?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Where did I go wrong? You know,
Yes.
and then you start thinking back to all the things that you could have done, should have done, and put the guilt on yourself of why your child is in addiction, and that's not true, and it's not exactly the way that it, you know.
Yeah. My mom has come to me and apologized. Like I should have done that. I had to tell her, Mom, no.
Yeah.
I made my choices. I inflicted that on myself. You know, yeah, she wasn't the best. I wasn't the best. Nobody's perfect. There's no perfect mother, perfect father, perfect child.
Right.
Everybody makes mistakes, but that was not the reason I became an addict. You know?
But when you're in addiction, you will certainly tell them it is.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
oh,
it's
yeah.
your fault because you were such a horrible parent, because you guys split up whenever I was young, because of this, because of that, and they'll put the blame on you. But I think we need to stop there for a second and really just speak to the people out there that have a child in addiction, that have a loved one in addiction, and just tell them it's not your fault.
It's not your fault.
It's not your fault. You could have been. There are people that I have counseled in recovery that have had the best home. Their parents never split up. They were in church every Sunday and every Wednesday. They went to private school. They had everything that they needed. You know, they were completely taken care of, and their kids still ended up in addiction. And there are people who their parents split up and they were in abusive families and abusive homes, and they had absolutely nothing and all the things. And you know what? They turned out just fine, and they didn't end up in addiction.
I know there's a lot of statistics that say that it's a broken home kind of ordeal to be an addict, but I have seen it. I've seen it. I had a great home when I was a small child. You know, like there's all kinds of aspects to it. I've seen, like you said, there's many people I've seen that had everything just fine according to what, you know, doctors would say.
And I understand the statistic, you know, it does create a better environment if you have both of your parents and all that stuff. I'm not saying, you know, not to stay married and not to give your children everything that they need, but just to take the pressure off of yourself. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. And, you know, one of the harmful things that can come from that is guilt parenting. And guilt parenting is so destructive, whether your child is in addiction or whether your child is not in addiction, because you'll start buying them things anytime they want it. You'll start playing into whatever they want, and that's going to create unhealthy habits in them. So take the guilt and the shame parenting off the table, take it out. It's not your fault, and blaming yourself isn't going to make it better. You know?
Boundaries are good.
I'm even working through that with my own child, you know, because I had so much guilt of what I've done to him. When we first got them back, I was like, yes, you can do this, or yes, you can have this, yes, you can. But I realized that was creating such an unhealthy relationship, and still learning, you know, learning that.
Yeah, I agree. I did that with Jeffrey too. Whenever I first got him back, I bought him something at every store we went to. And I was like, I'm so sorry that I lost you. Let me just do everything I can to make it better. And I ended up spoiling him and making him a brat. And so then I had to start saying no. You know, I'm sorry that I lost you for a little while, but you're back now. So no, you know.
So no.
So no. The answer is no. Yes. But the boundaries, that's an awesome thing to try and learn too. Boundaries is a huge thing. You know, and there's not like A plus B equals C answer to what your boundaries should be. But I highly encourage you, if you have a loved one in addiction, to reach out to someone, a pastor, a counselor. Al-Anon is a great group that you can get involved in. Call your local rehab. If there is a faith-based recovery program in your town, call them and say, I have a loved one in addiction and I need help learning how to set healthy boundaries. I need help in learning what to do. And find those healthy boundaries boundaries for you and for your family.
You can call your local churches. You'd be surprised at how many support groups are actually in each neighborhood that they don't advertise for. There's so many things that you can do, because I'm telling you that boundaries and accountability are things that you need as a family member coming out of your family member being in addiction, and the addict needs them too. So it's good to have somebody that you can call when you're setting up your boundaries and you feel like they're about to be crossed or been crossed, or you're feeling guilty or shameful, and you have somebody to call. You can be like, listen, this is what just happened. I need you to reinforce my thoughts. Like, I need to stick with my boundaries. It's good to have accountability, just like your recovering family member is going to need to have somebody to do the same thing, to hold them accountable. And then you're going to also have to learn as you grow how to hold them accountable too. That's part of having boundaries. So the boundaries are just a beautiful thing to have all the way around the board.
It's good. It's good for you. It's good for your loved one in addiction. It's good for everybody. And it's hard at first. It's hard to say no at first. It's hard to put up those walls at first, but you will find that it's really good in the end.
And remember, you're not alone, no matter what you think. You're not alone.
There's another great resource you can look up. I believe it's on the State of Tennessee website, but you could look up faith-based recovery congregations, and they have them in every county. And you can look up whatever county you live in. If you live in the state of Tennessee, you can look up and see what faith-based recovery congregations are in your county, and then you can call them, because they are putting their name out there saying, we want to help. And so you can call them and look for help with them. And I think another thing to understand too, when you have a loved one in addiction, is it's not as easy as you think to just get up and get into rehab. It's not that easy to just say, I think I want to get clean today. I'm just going to go check myself in somewhere. Beds are full. It costs money. It's hard to find some place that will take you in. It's not that easy to just get up and do it.
And it's scary, and fear sets in. You know, like, even if there was a bed available, like, fear sets in, but fear is a liar. And we got to understand that and know that. But when you're in it, you don't know that. You know, it's I used to say that people just don't want to do it. They just don't want to get clean. But it's not that. It is fear of the unknown. It's fear in what your life will be and what you're leaving behind. You know,
it's easier to stay in a broken state. Because it's what you know. It's what you're used to. And dealing with the sickness and not knowing, and especially if you're homeless, and even if you were to get in a bed, you start to get those fearful thoughts of, what am I going to do after? I still have nowhere to go. I still don't have anything. Like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah. And also, I just want to say, like, don't ever get weary in praying for these family members. Like, that's huge. Like, I know that after years of praying for this person and going to God on their behalf, like, can get weary. Just continue.
Keep praying.
Keep praying. Prayer.
I think, how many years did the Israelites pray to God while they were in captivity to Egypt?
Oh my gosh.
How many years did they pray to God for freedom? And one day God said, it's time.
It's time.
And so never stop praying for them, and trust the Lord and His goodness. It's really easy whenever you have a loved one who's in addiction to start doubting God. God, you're not hearing me. God, you're not answering my prayers. God, they didn't make it out. They overdosed. Whatever it may be. Are you still good? Are you still good in those circumstances? But never doubt God's goodness.
Think about Moses. He went through all of that leading the Israelites out, and he never saw the promised land, but he trusted in God's promise all the way through. And that's what he did. It didn't matter that he didn't see it. It was part of his generation. It was part of a promise that God made, and God follows through. I remember when I was in addiction, and if you listen to my testimony, when the DA pulled me out and the two women came to pick me up, they allowed me to use their phone to call my mom, because I hadn't talked to her in a long time. And my mom, that was one of the things she said, your grandmother and I have been praying for you. My grandmother had just passed away about a month before. I hadn't spoken to my grandmother in years or seen her in many, many years. And she knew I was in addiction. She knew I was lost. She knew that nobody knew where I was. Nobody had heard from me in forever. And she never stopped praying. And she passed away praying for me. And her prayer was answered. She may not have seen it from a fleshy human state standing here in front of me, but she knows. She prayed for that till she died, and her prayer was answered. Don't ever stop praying for them, ever.
And I also want to talk about that too. You know, if you have a loved one in addiction and they haven't called you in days, weeks, months, whatever it is, it's not because they don't love you.
No.
It's not because they don't love you. I didn't call my dad. I disappeared off of the face of the planet, and I didn't call him for I don't even know how long, because I was out of my mind. But it wasn't because I didn't love my dad. It was because I couldn't handle hurting him anymore. I knew every time I called him, it hurt him. I knew that I was using him. I knew that I was manipulating the situation, and I didn't want to do that to him anymore. And even though I didn't know a way out, all I knew was just to stop calling. And so please know that if your loved one isn't calling you, if they're not showing up, if they're not coming around, it's not because they don't love you. It's not because they don't care. It's because they hate what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they don't want to put it around you anymore. And that's not the right answer.
No.
It doesn't make it right, and it doesn't make it okay. But just to understand and to see that from a different perspective, you know.
One of the lies that we tell ourselves is that everybody's better off without us. Like, we are so broken and ruined that everybody is better off, and they'd be better off with us dead. Like,
Yes.
there's no reason for us to come around because your life is better without me.
Yeah.
And it's something that we tell ourselves because, like she said, like, we know what we're doing. You know, you can tell when somebody comes around and you tell them, you know, your kids miss you and they want this and they know.
They know.
That's one of the things they know. They know, you know, and it's just this big, it's a whirlwind of lies and shame and guilt and numb. Lies and shame and guilt and numb it.
Yes.
Lies and shame and guilt and numb it. And and in the process of that, we just push everything away.
Yes. Because it's easier to push it away than to deal with it, you know? Yeah, because, you know, there's that fear, like you said, of if I go into a program, I'm going to be sick. I'm going to be horribly sick. And that sickness is worse than anything that you felt before, because it's not just like a flu of a body sickness.
Your soul gets sick.
It's your soul, it's your mind, it's your whole thing. And the whole time, you know, if I just go out here and get it one time, it'll go away. I am sick. You know, when you have the flu, you have the flu. That's it. You know, when you have a cold, you have a cold and that's it. But imagine if you had the flu and you knew if I went out and did one thing, it would go away.
And I'm talking about the flu that feels like you're dying. You can't get out of bed. You can't eat. You can't do anything. You can't even think straight.
Yeah.
Your body is convinced it's dying.
Yes.
And you know one thing, and it all goes away, and you're better.
And you're better.
It's not about being high. It's about feeling normal.
Yeah, because by the time your loved one gets to this point, it's not about going and hanging out with friends and having fun anymore. Your loved ones probably are not having fun. They're not enjoying what they're doing. It's about, I have to do this to keep my body going. They're miserable.
Yeah.
They're miserable where they are. And I know that thought process of, well, my loved one would just rather be out partying with their friends than to be here, but that's not true. It's not true. You know, for 90% of them out there, it's not true. They're miserable and they hate what they're doing and they're sick and it's dark and it's dirty where they are. But it's scary to get out and it hurts to get out and it's painful. And then once you're in a program and you get past the sickness, you have to face yourself.
Oh, and that's hard, and it doesn't go, and it's not fast either.
Yes.
It's a long-standing process.
Yes. You have to face all of the people that you've hurt. You have to face the things you've done to yourself, to your kids, to your parents, to your family. You have to face yourself. And some people can get over the sickness part and get through that, but the facing themselves part is harder. And you know, you can go numb that.
Yep.
You can go numb that. You can go take that away. You don't have to feel that hurt and pain of what you've done anymore. That's the hardest part. And I remember that part, you know, when Jeffrey's dad, he went to the program in Alabama a couple of times. And I was like, he got through the sickness. You know, I think it was the second time he went. He got through the sickness. Okay, he's good. He got through the sickness. But then I remember a couple months in, whenever he left, and just the devastation that we felt. You know, we really thought that this was it this time, that he was going to get out of it this time. But I knew, you know, it's when you come down to having to face yourself and work through those things. Those are the hard part, you know? And so, you know, don't tell your loved one that they're a horrible person when they leave a recovery program. Don't tell them, you know, that you can't stand them and all that stuff. It is good to set up healthy boundaries, and it's good to have healthy boundaries for your home and for your family. But you have to show them the love of God, you know, and you have to understand that the love of God It loves you. While we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Even in our sins, even in our mess, his love sent him to the cross to die for us. But his love doesn't mean that he never tells us no.
Yeah.
His love doesn't mean that he never disciplines us. His love doesn't mean that he never gives us the hard answers or the hard things, but it means that he loves us even in the midst of it, and that he's doing it for our good. And when your loved one leaves and you're being angry with them and you're hurting with them, are the things that you're saying for their good, or are they from your place of hurt?
Yes.
Are the things that you're saying for their good, or are they for your own protection? You know, and I understand what it's like to have a loved one in addiction, and you want to protect yourself from that hurt again. You want to protect yourself from those highs and lows of they're in rehab, they left, they're doing better, they're back out there. You want to protect yourself from those things. And I get that, and I understand that. You know, we've all been there through that part of it too. But just make sure that the things you're doing are done out of love, you know.
And it's okay to set, you know, and we understand each individual circumstance, each individual person is going to have different boundaries.
Right.
And if there's been a lot of whatever the history is with your family member, it sometimes that boundary of I love you, I will feed you, but you cannot stay here.
Yeah.
You cannot come in.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes that's okay. And sometimes they need to be there for a night. And you need to see, you know, sitting down with somebody and telling them like, I love you. And these are the things that I can and cannot allow. And these are the reasons why, you know, and
Yeah.
if-
But I love you nonetheless.
but I love you nonetheless.
Yeah.
I remember my mom, she would never let me stay at her house, and she would tell me, she told me, you know, I should have just let you come in. You wouldn't have wound up where you were. And you know what? The honest truth is, I would have used behind her back in the other room when she was home.
Yes.
And you know what? That's just it. Like, I respect her for what she did. You know, sometimes you can love them to death.
Yes.
And that is a part of enabling. So,
Oh, enabling. That's a big one.
yeah.
I remember God asking me one time, when does your help not help? When is your help not actually helping? When is your help hurting? And man, that's a hard pill to swallow, you know, because you think, oh, wow, I probably shouldn't have said that on an addictive thing. But, you know, at what point do you get to the point where you face and you say, my help is actually hurting you?
And how do you find that line? When? How do you find out what the line is of this is too much? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. There's Sierra.
What is she doing?
What is she doing?
Hold on. You guys keep talking. I'll be right back.
You told her to come join our vlog?
Yeah, tell her to come on in, say a little something.
Well, I thought about the enabling too. Like, I had family that enabled me in a way. You know, they loved me, and I had a child, so they wanted to help me, take care of me, have me in the house. But all I did was just get messed up. I mean, if I didn't have a place to go, I was able to go there.
Yeah.
If I couldn't take care of my child, they took care of my child. Like, it was just, it was a boundary that was crossed. I was grateful that they were there, but I also look back and see how damaging it is, you know?
See, my mom wouldn't enable me,
Yeah.
but I remember I dated a guy and his parents enabled him to death, and I took part in every second of that.
Look, Sierra!
Hey, Sierra, come in here and say hi. Woo! Look at that hair. Look, she looks so good. Everybody, Sierra Billingsley.
She's so glad to be here.
Yes.
Right now. She's so glad.
I wasn't just dropping something off. No.
No, not at
Yes.
all.
But I just wanted to pop in.
What do you got to say about people, loved ones in addiction or enabling?
Any advice?
Boundaries, all that good stuff.
Yes, I would have to say there is a fine line that you have to find for yourself and the other person to set boundaries. You know, what that looks different for all relationships because what's a boundary for one is not a boundary for another. So, but also in doing that, I would say just keep praying for them, you know, because I know it was the prayers of others that kept me.
Yes.
Because I wasn't praying a thing.
Yeah.
So just keep praying for them, encourage them, and then also following through with the boundaries that you set. Don't teeter totter, because I know once you know it's confusing for yourself and for the other person if you go back and forth.
Yeah.
So
And then there's a whole different aspect of it when you have kids, you know, because I remember with Jeffrey's dad, you know, with him being in addiction and feeling like I wanted to protect Jeffrey from those things, but I also wanted Jeffrey to be able to see his dad and to be a part of what his dad was doing. And I remember just the anger and the hurt that would come from him and him not getting it and him not understanding and, you know, all those things. It's hard when you have kids and their parents in addiction, you know. It's hard to navigate through that. And I think it's the same thing with it's not the one size fits all answer for everybody, you know.
it's true.
But
And I think some of it's trial and error.
Absolutely.
Okay, we crossed the boundary, can't go back to there.
Yes.
that didn't work.
We
Yes.
live and we learn.
Yes.
There's that point of after coming out of addiction and having to set boundaries with addicts and people, and you're like, dang, man, that's it. Now I know what they were thinking when they said that. You know, like I know what they did. I know what. Okay.
And I know everybody may not agree with this, but I'm a firm believer in being honest with your kids. They are smarter than you think they are.
Yes.
They know what's up and what's going on. And I would rather my kid process with me about it because they know we have that open and honesty. Than for them to go to school and talk to somebody at school about it, and who knows what kind of advice they get, or them go, you know, wherever and talk to somebody else about it. I would rather be honest with my kid. You know, your parent is in addiction and they're struggling and they're hard, but we pray for them and we love them. And I know it's hard when they're here one day and not the next. I know it's hard when they say they're going to show up but they don't. But let's talk to me about it. Let me help you work through this pain and this, you know,
Validate
this
them.
frustrate in it. Yes,
Definitely agree on that one.
and remind them that. Just because your parents in addiction doesn't mean they don't love you. They do love you. They may not be here for the birthday party. They may not be here for the doctor's appointment. They may not be here for these things, but it's because they're sick. But they do love you. You know? And don't under any circumstance ever vent about your child's parents with your child.
Yeah. Oh, that goes for any
Yes.
time,
Never.
addiction or not.
Never.
Don't do
Never
it.
do it. It's not a good idea. It does not help the kid. It does not help you. It creates unhealthy relationships. Don't do it.
You'll start putting a lens on things for your child.
And it's hard. You gotta grit your teeth sometimes. You're like, oh, you know.
Yeah, you better take it to the prayer closet.
But do not talk about your kids' parents with them, even if they're in addiction.
It's going to be hard enough for them to work through without the extra.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, ladies, nice to see you. Nice to see y'all.
Yes.
I have to
Thanks
go
for
to work.
joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yes.
All right.
Well, thank you for being our visitor. We appreciate
Our guest speaker. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.
If you want Sierra to come back, go ahead and
Yes, go ahead and hit like. Yeah.
Probably need my keys.
Yes.
We love you.
Love you.
Have a good day at work.
All right, y'all too.
Yeah.
I just love her.
I do too.
Yeah.
She's another one that understands what it's like in addiction and to have an addict as a family member.
Yeah.
So
It's hard.
yeah.
And you know, I think sometimes when you're in addiction and your family member or someone you love gets clean, you start to resent them in a way. You know, you're better than me now. You know,
Or you think you're better than
you
them.
think you're better than me because you've got it all together and
you're taking care of the kids now,
and
and
you've got
I'm-
this, you know. But it's not that we think we're better.
just trying hard. You know what I mean? We are fighting through every day, especially in the beginning, especially when you go home and you have children. I didn't go home and have my children. My daughter was grown and my son was adopted. So that has got to be even a bigger fight.
Yeah. And we all fall short. You know?
Yes.
We all
Yes.
fall short for sure.
If you are in addiction and you are watching this, we are clean and we have our homes and we have it, but we do not have it all together.
No.
I'm a mess.
We are not perfect.
Listen, we are still one decision away, and we know that. We are one choice away, and that's the thing. Every day we wake up and we talk to God and we talk to one another and we choose life.
Yes.
We choose life and we know that we're not going to go back. Like, we know what's back there. We know what does not work, and we understand. Like, believe me, it is not easy.
Yes.
It is beautiful, but not because everything is perfect and flowers are blooming and unicorns are
Rainbows and
dancing. It's not,
sunshine.
no. It's beautiful because we're alive and we know what hell we were in.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would do anything to not go
Not
back
go
to
back
that,
there.
that hell again, you know.
And it's still one decision, and
Yes.
we'll still be driving down the road. We talk about this often. Like I'll be driving and randomly get a thought in my head about using or just
Yes.
going to get a drink, and that
Going
wasn't
to get a
even the
drink.
thing.
Uh-huh.
Like, and for no reason, I don't even have to be having a bad day. It just pops in. But you know what? I have to choose. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not thinking about that. And then if it comes up again, then I call somebody.
Yes.
My accountability. I'm like, hey guys, I don't.
I don't know why I'm
I don't
having
know
these
why,
thoughts
but there
right
it
now,
is.
but yes, you know, and even I've been clean almost 11 years, you know, and my husband hurt his back a couple months ago. I was in a really vulnerable place. I had just left my job. I had a lot of hurt and a lot of stuff I was working through, and my husband hurt his back, and he got a prescription of muscle relaxers, and I had to tell him, like, honey, I love you, but I can't have you bring those in the house right now. I'm in a vulnerable place, and I'm not thinking about taking them, but I'm not so naive to think that I couldn't be thinking about taking them, you know, and having those boundaries for yourself and setting up those things for yourself, you know. But there's a difference between I've been clean 20 years and every day's a battle, and I've been clean 20 years and I understand that I'm still one step away.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, every day is not a battle. I have good days and I trust the Lord and He's made me new, but I also understand the Bible verse that says, if you think you're standing, be careful because you might fall.
Yes.
Be careful. You know, I'm never able to do this on my own. It is only by the grace of God that I am where I am and I am who I am.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know? So I hope some of this information helped somebody in some way. And please, if you have questions, reach out. If you have a loved one in addiction and you're struggling, reach out. If you don't understand, reach out. It's okay to say, I don't get it. It's okay to say, I don't understand. It's okay to say, I'm angry. It's okay to say those things. But reach out and get help with those. Don't live in that place. And if you're in addiction and you're the one that we've been talking about today that isn't calling your family and isn't coming around, and you're scared of getting clean and you're scared of facing yourself, reach out.
Yeah.
Just because you reach out and say, I'm out there, doesn't mean you have to go right away to get clean. You know, we can talk to you. We can, you know, meet you where you are and help you where you are. We hope that you'll get clean.
Yeah.
And we're praying for you. But it's okay to just reach out and say, I'm struggling and I'm not ready to get clean, but I'm struggling. You know, that's a first step.
Absolutely.
It's important to have people to reach out to and say, you know, I did this, or I messed up, or I'm, you know, continuing this and I need help. Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It is.
It's okay
Yeah.
to do those things, you know?
Yeah.
There are people that understand you.
Yes.
There are
Yeah.
people that understand you.
And
Yeah.
we don't think we're better than you.
No.
No.
We're just trying to navigate it all too. So,
And if you want help and you're like, I have no money, I have no this, I have that, I can't do this, I can't get here, I can't get there. Listen, there are
We
people
got
that
you.
will find you. There
Yes.
are people that will try their best to get you somewhere,
Yeah.
pick you up, take you there.
Yeah.
And we may not have all the resources, but we have resources and they have more resources and those
Yes.
people have resources. And over here, and every county has some type of CPRS that might be able to help you. There are
Yes.
people that can help you. Just you won't find them if you don't look at all.
Amen.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we love you guys and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Peace out, Cub Scout.